and I can't see a bloody thing.
Same here. That damn light's too harsh, really, isn't it? But I tell you what, that film just grows and grows, and across the world, people love it. It is so subtle in its nuances, but it is David versus Goliath, and you are so brilliant in that role.
Throw money.
So give us an idea of what it was like on that set, and
Oh, that's better.
yeah, that is better. Now we can see them, Michael.
Look, it was, comedy is a serious business. And you've got to remember, we made that film in 10.5 days. So there was not a lot of time for fun. And we did it with, if you notice in the film, the eye lines are pretty wide. That is because if you had a two-hander, there'd be 2 cameras, and you'd get maybe 2 takes. And so the timing of the scenes was actually the timing of the actors, where it couldn't be fiddled with, in as much as, because we were doing, it was sort of live. As much as possible, we do 2 cameras. It would take a little longer to set up, but at the same time, it was a beautiful way to work, because what was happening was the real timing of the actors. So there was not a lot of time for levity, and there was such a wonderful energy, because usually on a film set, it's like watching grass grow. And you're just waiting around and waiting around and waiting around. And then you've got to get yourself in front of the camera and then activate yourself. And with the castle, sort of one of the working dog, Monsanto, at the end of the day, I was going like a rocket. And he was amazed that of the energy that I had at the end of the day. And that was because I didn't have to sit around all day waiting for the shot to be set up. And you'll notice on the go, look, there's not a dolly, there's not a, did we have a zoom? It was just a very static camera, but the script carried the whole thing. The script was just a perfect script. The only line, and I usually try to get lines into whatever I do, the only line I ever got in was, "Watch the boat, mate." So yeah, that's sort of what we were working under. But it was no trial, it was a complete joy to do. But as I said, we didn't have time for the hijinks that you usually have on a film.
You know, there's so much love in that film, and even though it's a satire, I actually watched that and I can see my own parents, and I can see that family, and I realised how fortunate I was to have love in my family. And I think that's the most warming thing about this film, the reason why it's translated worldwide. I was saying to Michael outside, I've only been to LA once, and I remember standing on the corner of Sunset Boulevard, and the first American I spoke to was dressed in a huge white robe and looked like Jesus Christ. And when he realised I had an Australian accent, the first word out of his mouth, well, the first 2 words were the castle. It was quite astounding.
Yeah, it didn't have legs in America. It actually did better in Middle America than it did in, say, New York or LA. And I remember my mate Jack Thompson, I gave him a copy because he was over in the States doing that film with set in Savannah. From a great book too.
Garden of Good and Evil.
Garden of Good and Evil, and
Thank you for that download.
and Clint Eastwood, and he gave the DVD to a woman who'd been helping them out to have a look at, and she came back and she said, "My husband is just like that." So it does carry. It does carry.
My husband is just like that, and I love him dearly. Now, I think it's up to the audience to ask a question. Please.
Michael, fantastic performance.
Be loud. If you...
Fantastic performance. I just would like to know if you could take us back to what the table read was like when that cast was first brought together. Obviously, you sat down as a cast and maybe read it and had a feel for the actual script and the dialogue. Did that happen before the shooting started, and what was that like?
Look, there's a bit of a story there actually, because I was a last minute replacement, and I got a call from my agent to say that Jane Kennedy would like to have lunch with me, and I'm thinking, front line. And so we just talked, and I hate auditions. I'm awful at auditions. And we just talked. And then she handed me a script. This was on Saturday. And said, "If you're interested, could you call me this afternoon?" And I went home and I read the script. And I went, "Oh, thank you, Huey." It was just a beautiful script. Just, I could see it all. And Monday morning, this is Saturday, Monday morning, I'm flying to Melbourne. And the read-through. And everything about that movie was on the cheap. We were all doing it for equity minimum, and but we sat around the room and read the script, and it reinforced even more to me how good that script was. We were pissing ourselves, really. And that's basically set the tempo. And what a great cast.
Oh, incredible.
What a great cast. It's not a one-man band, that show. It was just a beautiful bit of casting. And you know, Farouk is actually a QC.
How ironic is that? How ironic.
Well, he was actually the advisor on all the law stuff. and he went to university with Santo and Rob Sedge. So it was just really unusual. I mean, it was not sort of casting you would think of usually. It wasn't that corporate sort of casting. It was just people they knew and friends of friends and people who usually didn't work on film. A couple of the people there were stand-ups and all sorts of things. So it was a wonderful mix, and it was I think the best film, the first film that, oh God, Eric Banner had ever done.
Yeah.
And I couldn't look at him. This terrible earnestness that he brought to it. Like, half the time I couldn't look at him because I'd laugh. So yeah, it was a very special mix. And I hadn't actually worked for 12 months. I decided that my film career was over and I would devote myself to writing and getting projects up. Well, that came to a rather abrupt end. But yeah, it was a huge film for me. It gave me a second career, if anything.
Michael, how did you said that you hadn't worked for 12 months, and yet that film turned you into a national treasure, and you've made a string of quite extraordinary films since then. How does it feel to have gone from that, you know, that desert to a purple patch?
A gift. I'd say a gift. We never made a lot of money out of the castle, but I'm never going to whinge about that because I got a second career out of it. Actually, Channel 9 has paid me more than Working Dog because they play it twice a year. And the residuals for Australian actors, will go on strike. It's a great actors' strike where nothing will happen because we haven't got the numbers.
We've got a couple more minutes. Yes, one more question.
I think this movie is amazing because it talks to a universal truth about justice, and I think it grows over time. So thank you for the gift you've given us. Do you think in these troubled times with The Voice, this movie could be used to potentially make the connection as you do in the movie with Marburg and to really help the Yes vote?
Remember the scene at the very end of the play, the film, and me and the missus are there around the pool table, and I said, I'm starting to realise how the Aborigines feel. And the wife replies, have you been drinking though? And yeah, so I wish the feeling of that was around at the moment, but as you very well know, it isn't. And I just posted a little video we did on Facebook today, and I can't post it on the Yes Australia site because they said bullshit. But at the same time, these are quite sad times for me. I mean, it seems to me like the referendum is doomed. And I just think of the wash up from that is going to be terrible. Really terrible for our Koori mates. Bad.
That is a very thoughtful, nuanced question, and I really appreciate that, and an incredible answer there. I mean, I had a moment last night here where I was being humorous and just saying, put your hand up if you're voting no, and we'll throw you out of the cinema and not give you money back. And I had someone come up to me, wasn't an Indigenous person, and they said, I'm just relaying, you shouldn't say that. And I said, it's humour. I didn't pick that person up and throw them out. But as a white Australian that feels deeply that we need to acknowledge our Indigenous history, I mean, we're one of the youngest countries in the world, with probably the most predominantly oldest established culture that lived in harmony on this continent, that we need to actually step forward So Michael has been an extraordinary activist, and he was one of the main faces behind the campaign to save this extraordinary building.
Yeah.
And in many ways, you know, it's sort of art and life become fused together. We've got a little bit more time because we have a very special guest, so more questions.
I'd like to just say something. My family comes from Central Queensland, and my family is basically racist. Wonderful people. Wonderful people. I love my family. And they're funny and irreverent and all that stuff. But coming from Central Queensland, there's a story. My Uncle Cole, who I loved, because I lost my father really early, can't remember my father, and he did mustering out at Longreach, and he was walking down, and one of the Aboriginal stockmen was sitting outside the pub because he wasn't allowed in. And so my uncle sat down beside him and they started to talk. And then, Longreach being Longreach, by the time he got home, Grandma knew that he'd been talking to this Aboriginal lad outside the pub, and she took to him, blah blah blah, and Uncle Cole's reaction was, "Oh no, I know, Mum, but shit, he can ride." And then, when I was about 17 or 18, and I'm a rugby league freak, and Stephen Noof was the Pearl. And I was talking to Cole about him, you know, because I just thought he was the most wonderful footballer. And Cole said, "Yeah, it's not bad for a coon." And I realised that that's sort of an imprint on people. It really shocked me. And, I didn't know the story about Grandma and Cole at that stage, but I thought, in retrospect, that is a terrible thing. Because he's almost had to apologise for Steve Renouf's talent. And it just always puzzled me, because when I was a kid, my dad was killed when I was about 2 and a bit, and Mum had this boyfriend, and he used to tell me stories when we go to bed, and the hero of the story was a little Aboriginal boy. And those stories were bullshit, but at the same time, they changed my whole thinking about Aboriginal people, and I often wish that we could have a few Aboriginal stories to read to little kids to maybe change the way they think from their parents. Because it's ingrained. I mean, why do, take Central Queensland. None of the original tribe are there anymore. All the Aborigines there came up from Charlotte. And what does that say? What does that say about our past? It's really disturbing, really. And Queensland and WA are not going to vote yes. We will not vote yes. I just posted a thing that we did last week on Facebook, and I'm standing by for the hate mail next week. Anything else?
Which is, you know, as far as I'm concerned, none of us should ever look at the hate mail because it will always be there. But there'll always be people like this at this audience. And I thank you very much for coming. It's an honour to have this extraordinary man with us in BONDIWOOD.
Applause. The actor's heroine. Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you.